thing, but she is the first woman and the first educator to be Commissioner of State Lands. And this is a milestone. She served 3 terms in the state legislature and was the chair of the education committee, and co-sponsored and promoted a whole bunch of bills on education. And I'm not going to tell you what she's going to do at the state lands office. That is her job. So thank you so much, Commissioner, for coming here on a Saturday night and giving us your time.
Thank you very much, Judy. All right. Hello, everyone. I did bring a speech, but then someone complained that they're used to just hearing me speak extemporaneous. So I'm going to put this here, if that's okay. Because I know Dick. I know Dick. He'll read it for me.
Right.
Just in case I need to remind myself of anything. And I have been asked to project. So if you can't hear me, just give the sign. I would like to just begin by thanking you all and your organization for your work in advocacy, in civic engagement, especially in this time of great divisiveness and extremism in our country. I think having moderate, reasonable voices in the policy arena is very helpful to us. And so I very much appreciate the work you do. And I myself have spent, I have my moments and evenings, you know, having long policy discussion with league members in Los Alamos here on water policy and women's right to choose. And so I'm very grateful for that work that you do. And then the second thing I wanted to do, oh, and also, of course, thank you to your fearless leader. Very good. Thank you for having me. But I wanted to thank Laura and her crew here and to give a round of applause for this very unique New Mexican menu. So for the great food and the phenomenal service. For those of you who know me, you know I live just a few blocks from here. So it's a Saturday night, yes, but I was very happy just to come the short distance to be with you all this evening. It was very convenient for the first time. It's never convenient for White Rockies, ever. But this is my, this is my friendly neighborhood restaurant. So I always love to spend time at Pig and Fig when I get the opportunity. So yes, I am Stephanie Garcia Richard, the State Land Commissioner. I was a 3-term legislator in this very district here. And for those of you who don't know me, after 24 men served very honorably in the State Land Commission, I was privileged to be the 25th Land Commissioner, the first woman, the first Latina, and the first educator in the 100+ years history of that institution. So I have been asked to speak a little bit on the land office before I talk about the legislative session, just because it's not a well-known state agency. And so we are a completely independent, autonomous state agency responsible for 13 million acres of state trust land. That is the size of New Jersey and Connecticut put together for you East Coasters. And that is all under the purview of one individual who doesn't have to go to the legislature or the governor to make any decision on state trust land. We use that land to raise revenue responsibly. It's a constitutional mandate to raise revenue responsibly for our public schools, hospitals, and universities in New Mexico. In fact, we raise so much money that we actually save taxpayers from having to pay out money for those particular public services. And we save taxpayers thousands of dollars per year. So in New Mexico, thousands of dollars per year can mean the choice between food and medicine, and so that's an important function that we play at the State Land Office. We use the land. We have about 170 professionals, from accountants, biologists, archaeologists, rangeland ecologists, and they help me make land decisions. And the things we do on the land range from agriculture, so we do grazing of cattle on most of the land. We have renewable energy projects, business and commercial projects, and we lease for oil and gas. mostly in the northwest section of the state and the southeast section of the state. And I can talk a little bit more about the oil and gas industry maybe a little bit later on in my talk. I was asked to talk about sort of what's upcoming for the land office, not only what we did in the legislative session, but what do we see sort of on the horizon. And so I'd be willing to mention that also. Because I am a woman, it was important for me to hire a very diverse superstar team to come and work for me. And so I am proud to tell you that we have 63% female hires at the state land office. I believe that's probably a record. And they range from assistant commissioners to directors of the divisions, and they are a rock star team. I mean, they have come in. I've been able to lure them from, law offices and different parts of the state, and so they've come in to help me with the mission of the land office. And I'm very proud of that. So, this legislative session, we had a few initiatives, some successful, some which completely and totally bombed. And I want to talk about all of them. Senator Ivy Soto, carried a bill for us on transparency on decision-making at the land office. And I know transparency and accountability is a big deal for you all. But essentially, when I was on the campaign trail, the biggest complaint I heard about the land office was that these big deals, like land sales, land swaps, were done essentially behind closed doors in the dark. Because the land commissioner de facto can do that, just kind of rule by fiat. Once the commissioner's signature is on a lease, that's it. So what we did is we went to Senator Ivy Soto and asked him to carry a bill on particular transactions that the land office sees. So land swaps is a big deal. Transmission build out. We have some of these large transmission lines that really impact communities they're built in. Some infrastructure that is of a certain size or length. And we passed legislation to mandate public input and public meetings in the community where these projects are being proposed. So they have to be noticed in the local newspaper, and they have to be held in the impacted community. Because if you've ever looked at a map of New Mexico, you've seen the crisscross nature, we call it checkerboard, the checkerboard nature of land status in New Mexico. So you could have federal land surrounded by tribal land, state land, fee land, and the decisions that are made at the state land office will impact communities who have no say in that decision making. So that bill successfully passed the legislature, was signed by Governor Lujan Grisham. And I would have carried out those public meetings myself because that's the right thing to do. But now every single land commissioner in the future also must carry out those public meetings. So that was a great win for the land office. The second win was to receive the budget request that we asked for from both the legislature and the governor, and that was to create the first ever Office of Renewable Energy at the land office. And so essentially this is going to be an individual, and the notice for this job actually just got posted to state personnel. This is one individual whose sole mission it is, with a laser focus, to go out and recruit solar, wind, and transmission projects for the land office. I set a goal for the office that we would triple the amount of renewable energy projects on state trust land within my first term. I am happy to tell you that by the end of my first year, we will have doubled the amount of renewable energy projects on state trust land. I mean, folks are chomping at the bit. With this new leadership from the governor's office, from the legislature, passing new renewable portfolio standards, people are really ready to invest in renewable energy, and state trust land is a perfect place to do that. And then the second thing we asked the legislature for in our budget was an increase in our field staff down in the southeast. Has anyone visited down in Lee or Eddy County recently? Okay. So there is like a frenzy of development down there. I have 11 field staff for 13 million acres. That's impossible. It's impossible to really keep an eye and make sure that our state trust land, our public land, is being used responsibly. These are the folks that go out and do inspections. These are the folks that ensure that nothing is amiss with spills, infrastructure, trespass. And so we asked the legislature and the governor for additional field staff down in the southeast, and we were given that as well. So we're going to beef up those boots on the ground down in the southeast part of the state. The one big disappointment of the legislature was the royalty bill, the death, the sad, sad death of the royalty bill. So for those who didn't follow it with such bated breath, I can give you a recap. We had about a 3-hour beatdown in the Commerce Committee where the state legislature really showed their true colors. We came to the legislature and asked if we could charge royalty on our resources that belong to you and your kids and your grandkids. We wanted to be able to charge the same amount as the great progressive state of Texas. That's all we wanted, an even playing field. You know, the Permian Basin, the Delaware Basin, covers both states. We charge 20% royalty here. Texas charges 25%. Once that resource is developed and taken out of the ground and drilled, it's gone. It's gone. We're losing money right now. Not only did that bill allow us to increase royalty rates, but it allowed us to assess royalty on vented and flared methane. So you all know that we have an emissions problem in New Mexico. And in addition to the health concerns, the climate concerns, the fact that there is a cloud of methane and emissions so intense above the northwest part of our state it can be seen from space, venting and flaring methane is kind of like burning money. And we lose. New Mexicans lose. It's as though we were putting, $100 bills up on those flare towers. So that bill would have allowed us to do both things. Raise royalty to 25% to be on par with Texas, and assess royalty on vented and flared methane. You would have thought we were asking for the moon. That bill died a miserable, horrible death. But we are not giving up. We will be back with another proposal. We're actually trying to recruit, and we would love your help if you think that this is a worthy cause for your organization, or even you individually as advocates. We would love your help to advocate on behalf of this bill. But we are actually going to get our beneficiaries on board. UNM, NMSU, Western, Eastern, they all need to come to the table to say, hey, this means more money for the schools. This means more money for hospitals. We're losing money right now, folks. So that's... You can look that up online. Those vote counts are all recorded. You can look that up. Yeah, it was a bipartisan death. Bipartisan murder. I think that's all I wanted to say about the legislative session.
So we need,
Yeah.
this is a revenue, this is a budget session, so because it's a revenue bill, you can get you.
I mean, it's not technically considered a revenue bill.
Is it?
It's revenue. And actually, so Caroline just mentioned early childhood. We thought our bill was almost a perfect companion to early childhood, because early childhood seeks to take more money from the permanent fund. My bill, the royalty bill, the beauty of it is that it's actually double income, because the royalties go into the permanent fund. So while we wanted to take some for early childhood, my bill would have given additional revenue into the permanent fund. So I thought they were a perfect match.
So you'll have to get the governor?
We'll have to get the governor to put it on the call. I'm not sure we'll be able to do that, and so we may have to bring it back. But there might be Plan B, Plan C, and D as well. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. Right, and he was a Republican. That's right. Did you have anything to add?
No, I was going to say early childhood.
Early childhood, yeah. So you know that proposal for an additional 1%, and then the governor even changed it to a 0.5%, even failed. And that was a very modest increase with a very specific purpose. And my royalty bill would pay for that 1% plus, because those royalties are invested. It's not just one-time money. Okay, that's long-term investment. So then I guess I wanted to close just by letting you know what's on the horizon for your state land office. many of you may have already heard that we halted new drilling on oil, gas, and mineral development in the Chaco area on state trust land. So if you ever want to know about the authority of the state land office, you know, even the very powerful Udall and Heinrich have to put in a bill to do something like that. The land office just signs an order. So that's 72,000 acres. It's not a whole lot, but it will make a dent. In addition to that, I'm heading to Farmington tomorrow morning because we created a Chaco working group made up of Native folks, community members, advocates, and they are going to inform the land office on sustainable, healthy, respectful land management in the greater Chaco area. In addition to that, thank you very much. In addition to that, we are really trying to crack down on this issue of methane. And after the working group, I will be going out with folks from a group called Earthworks, who look at emissions through an infrared camera. And you could be standing on a well site and sort of start to feel like you're having a hard time breathing. You might be able to sense that something's not quite there, but you can't see it until you look through this infrared camera. And then you see leaks and clouds of methane and emissions that you didn't even know were there. And so that is something we're also trying to get a handle on, so we'll be doing that this weekend as well.
Now, does that just percolate up out of Mother Earth, or is it directly related to drilling and pumps and tubes and pipes?
The volume is directly related to the industry. So the system the industry uses is, you know, it's pipe, it's tanks, it's holding ponds. And there is emissions in that stuff. So it's almost like squeezing a balloon on one end. If you repair a joint between two pipes, you're going to drive the leak to some other part of the system. It's not a closed, tight system, and so you're going to de facto have leaks and yeah.
The worst in the nation?
Well, in that northwest corner. So those of you who have heard of the methane cloud, that's the one that has been identified by cameras. Yeah, that one. And this is, you know, this is near schools and near people's neighborhoods. I mean, people are living with this daily. So yeah.
That's also heating the atmosphere once it gets.
That's right. So it contributes to climate change as well. So not only our personal health and safety, but it contributes to the warming of the earth as well. So that's what we're going to be working on. We are starting a summer internship program. So if you know of any young biology students, archaeology students who would like a chance to work on state trust land, the largest laboratory in the state, please send them our way. We are still hiring as well. We entered office with a 25% vacancy rate, 25%. I mean, these folks, poor guys, they were like, you know, one person was doing the job of three. So we've gotten that down to 14% with just a crackerjack human resources team. And we are just continuing to hire quality people throughout the state. So keep an eye on us. Come visit if you're ever in Santa Fe. We're on Old Santa Fe Trail. I don't know if you'd like me to take questions. I can do that also.
If you'd like to, I think that would be great.
Okay.
People have questions.
Well, that's all I had to say. Meredith, she's first up, of course.
Yeah, you
That's
were
right,
first.
you were.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
No, but can you make some comments on the whole tech application? You were talking about the southeast area and, you know, the Permian and Delaware Basin, and you know, what is being done to protect that, you know, all of those resources from you know, nuclear fuel, spent nuclear fuel risks.
So for those of you who don't know the whole tech situation, is there anyone here who does not know what she's referring to? So we have spent commercial fuel. Okay, all right. So, and they'd like to bring it here to New Mexico. There's a group, quasi-governmental group who has formed, the Eddie Lee Alliance, Energy Alliance. They've purchased land, and they would like to contract with Holtec to store the nuclear fuel there. That is right smack in the middle of the largest oil play in the country, if not the world, in the country. So you've got fracking, you've got drilling, you've got tons of transportation, you've got salt water disposal happening at all levels of the geology in this area. So I think that the folks who stand to lose the most, if you think economically, are the operators in the area. So that's what we're working on right now, to try to get the operators in the area to speak up about what they'd lose.
I'd like to mention one thing. We met a couple of times in our public land study with Commissioner Dunn. And the last meeting we had with him after he decided not to run for re-election. And we asked him about Holtec. He said, that's the least of our problems. The problems, because of what you just said, the huge oil and gas exploration, all of the roads that are going through all of the roads that are going through what he called, it's not wet water, but it's the running, all the rivers and tributaries and everything. He said he was concerned about the environmental pollution caused by those more, and the what do you call it, not reprocessed water. Reintroduced water. Introduced water. He said that's the biggest threat. So I'd like to ask you about what do you think about that?
Yeah, so we were just chatting at my table during dinner about the use of water in oil and gas operations, and I think the estimate is about 5 barrels to 1. So 5 barrels of water are needed to produce 1 barrel of oil. So think of the millions of barrels of oil that we are producing out of the Permian. There's also millions of barrels of water that go along with that. And right now, mostly the use is fresh water. Now they say fresh, some of it's fresh brackish, some of it's fresh that is, that we could be utilizing for agriculture and human consumption. So what we would like to do at the State Land Office is use our lease agreements to push and incentivize recycling of water. We can't end oil and gas operations, no matter how much folks might want to do that. And I was criticized for wearing a ban fracking sticker. So what's the problem with having a commissioner that wants to ban fracking? We've had other commissioners that didn't want to ban fracking. I mean, the commissioner doesn't have the authority to ban or not ban fracking. So what we'd like to do is use the leverage we have to incentivize the behaviors we want, which is to reduce our use of fresh water. Reduce our use of fresh water. Right now, the practice is to inject the produced water deep into the ground, into the Devonian layer of geology. The issue with that, there are many issues with that, but one of the issues with that is that now that resource is down hole. You can't use it anymore. If you clean it up just a little bit, you could then recycle it, thus bringing down the use of fresh water. So that's what we are trying to incentivize at the State Land Office.
Do you agree with my assertion that 0.5% or 1% that you were asking for is probably the most important additional funds to education, the life of our children, and a lot of other things?
It's a beautiful
Yes.
softball. That's a beautiful. It's a beautiful lob. I love it. Wait, I do want to say something about that.
Okay.
I'm a native New Mexican. My family's been in New Mexico for generations, and we are no stranger in my family to generational poverty, cyclical violence, dependence on substances, substance abuse and dependence. Those are the challenges our New Mexican children face. And early childhood education is about as close to a silver bullet as we can get. It's $120 million a year. That's all we were asking. That's the 1%.
Yeah. Now, given that you and I agree on that, why wouldn't you name, especially the Democrat people who are against this? Why wouldn't you want to name and shame them, or have this entire group get on their case?
Because that is public information. If that's something that you all want to find and look for.
Look up that public information.
You know what? Everyone can chat with Dick afterward. He knows who they are. If we can get it on the call of the governor, because it's the budgetary session, it's iffy whether or not that is a budget bill. Yeah. I mean, we had folks coming out of the woodwork supporting that bill. Yeah. Yes, Addie. I mean, that is definitely something we could do. I actually have, I have folks at the land office who have been there for decades doing royalty that think that the statute already allows us to assess for vented and flared methane. So we may just begin doing that and hopefully get sued. I would love to get sued. I would love to actually prove this in a court of law, that I have the authority to do that, and then that'll be the definitive answer. So we may do that independently and then just bring the royalty rate itself, yeah.
Methane has some value.
Yes, it has some value.
Does the industry finally lose money by capturing it and selling it?
Yes, well, yes, because they don't have the infrastructure in place to actually properly capture it. So when they do, they will just recycle it for use on the lease itself, to run the machinery and the components of that well. They'll just recycle the methane back in if they've got the infrastructure. They don't, they have to build out those pipes and tanks and everything, and that's what loses the money.
Well, when they make money or lose money, considering the infrastructure.
I think that would make money.
Their side.
I think in the end they would make money, but I'm not here to hold the hand of the industry. I think it's absurd, actually, that the legislature is so acquiescent to this one industry. I mean, there's no other industry that we hold up in this manner. So I'm, you know, they make their market decisions. I'm okay with that. If the market can bear it in Texas, why can't it bear it in New Mexico? Yeah, I'm.
It just seems to me, if we could prove that they can still make money, then that one hell of an argument.
Yeah, my interest is arguing that the state of New Mexico makes money. So their lawyers can argue for them, and I'll argue that the state of New Mexico makes more money. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if your office has issued the rights of way permits for the Western Spirit transmission?
Yeah, so that's actually in the works right now. Because of its size, because of the length, that is actually going to be a long process. Western Spirit, I believe, has to go back to the PRC. No, does not. Okay. No, I realize. But Western Spirit, I think they're in process still. Yeah.
Unfortunately, because the company is working with RETA.
Yes.
And RETA is exempt from PRC. They don't have to go to PRC.
Right. Right.
Can you say anything more in more detail about the renewable energy emphasis that you are igniting? What kind of projects, or do you know much more about it?
Yeah, so there is.
1 year, which is fantastic.
So, well, there were developers that were already set to want to sign contracts with the state land office for build out of wind, transmission, and solar. Because of, I talked before about the checkerboard nature of land status, it is very difficult to have large swaths of land be dedicated to these things. But on the eastern side of the state, we have some tracts of land, of state trust land, that have been developed over time that are contiguous. Perfect for wind development because that is where the resource is. And so we are really targeting the eastern side of the state, the southern part of the state for solar, and working on these transmission projects.
Would an entity like P&M be a buyer of this?
No, these are going to be the actual wind and solar developers themselves. So Pattern Energy,
They have to sell it to
Iberdrola, they have to have a market, they have to have a buyer. So yeah.
because I know P&M is trying to achieve its renewable energy goals. I think the city of Albuquerque is trying to do it. Many more entities are trying to do it. So there
Right.
is
We provide the land on which to build.
Right.
That's how the state land office can take part.
Now, do you get any money from doing that?
We do get money from doing that. So those lease terms, the oil and gas lease terms are set in statute. Because like I said before, the oil and gas industry is handheld by the lawmakers of this state. But the renewable energy leases are at the complete purview of the office. So whatever the office feels is the best deal for New Mexicans, that negotiation takes place between a developer and the state land office to strike that balance. I mean, there's a lot of components. There's the decommissioning bond, there's the fee schedule, there's ensuring that the surface is not, if it's disturbed, it is refurbished, those kinds of things. And so all of that gets negotiated in the lease.
Is it like a bidding process?
It is a bidding process, yes it is. Yes it is, yep. Yeah, all contracts that go through the state land office, unless they are with the municipality, they have an exception. But any private entity that wants to lease land from the state land office, that is a public bidding process, yes.
So thank you so much for coming.